After the age of 65, life has a different rhythm. The noise of ambition fades, and in its place comes a quiet craving for peace, dignity, and simplicity. But if you've lived long enough, you know peace isn't something that just arrives one day. It has to be protected, and sometimes it starts with knowing what not to say, even to those closest to you. Today, we're talking about something many avoid: the 5 secrets you should never share with your family after 65 if you want a peaceful life. These aren't petty secrets. They're lessons carved from experience. Lessons that could save you from unnecessary stress, judgment, or even betrayal. Before we go on, I want to ask you something. Have you ever shared something with your family and later regretted it? Leave a comment and tell us what it was. No need to name names. Your story might just help someone else avoid the same mistake. And if you find wisdom in what we're sharing today, make sure to subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from. And every week, we talk about the things most people are too afraid to say out loud. Now, let's dive into the first secret. You might be surprised, it's not what you think. Number 1, your full financial picture. Let me tell you a story. A man named Richard, 72 years old, retired from a government job with a healthy pension, a paid-off home, and some savings tucked away. He felt proud, and he should have. So when his daughter asked how much he had saved for retirement, Richard answered honestly. Around $600,000, he said. He didn't think much of it. But things started changing. Suddenly, he was getting more frequent calls, not for conversation, but for a little help with bills. One of his grandkids wanted help with college tuition. His nephew asked for a small loan that was never paid back. Slowly, his peaceful retirement turned into quiet resentment. He felt guilty when he said no, and used when he said yes. The truth is, once your family knows your full financial picture, some may begin to view you less as a person and more as a resource. It's not always intentional, and it doesn't mean they don't love you. But pressures pile up. People assume you have more than enough, even if you don't feel that way. It's not about secrecy. It's about boundaries. You don't owe anyone a detailed report of your retirement accounts, your will, or your monthly expenses. If you do share, do it with a trusted advisor present, or better yet, through proper legal documents. What do you think? Should elderly parents share their financial details with their kids, or is it better kept private? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how you've handled this. And if this hit a little close to home, make sure you subscribe. The next one might speak even louder to your heart. Number 2, resentments from the past. Imagine this. You're sitting at a family dinner. The grandkids are laughing, someone's carving the roast, and the air feels warm. Then, out of nowhere, a conversation drifts toward the past. Someone says something about your younger days, how strict you were, or how you favored one child over the other. And suddenly, you find yourself blurting out, "Well, maybe if your mother had supported me more back then, I wouldn't have had to be that way." Silence. What began as a peaceful moment turns cold. Old wounds reopen. And even though the past is long gone, it now lives fresh again in the room. Holding on to resentment is like carrying a hot coal in your hand, hoping to throw it at someone. But when you finally let it go, especially after 65, you often just burn yourself. You see, sharing unresolved pain with your family might feel like you're finally speaking your truth. But without the right timing, intention, or setting, it often leads to confusion, guilt, or conflict. Your children may not understand the full context. Or worse, they may feel blamed, even if they weren't the cause. Instead, choose healing over rehashing. Process those emotions in a private space, with a counselor, a journal, or a trusted friend your age who's walked a similar road. Peace isn't just about silence. It's about choosing what to say and what to release quietly. Have you ever brought up something from decades ago, only to realize it didn't land the way you hoped? Share your experience in the comments. You're not alone, and your story might help someone else rethink what they choose to revisit. If this speaks to you, stay with us. The next secret is something many seniors don't talk about, but it can change how your family sees you forever. Number 3, plans for inheritance distribution. Here's a number that might surprise you. According to a 2023 survey by caring.com, 67% of American adults have no estate plan in place. But among those who do, nearly 1 in 3 say discussing it with family led to tension or arguments. And these aren't just casual disagreements. These are lasting, relationship-altering rifts. Why? Because money has a way of exposing things we didn't even know were there. Insecurities, jealousy, entitlement. And when you reveal how your estate will be divided before you're gone, you're not just handing out numbers. You're unintentionally assigning worth. Why did she get more? Why not me? What did I do wrong? Even if your intentions are pure, even if your reasons are fair, your choices might be interpreted through decades of sibling rivalry, emotional wounds, or family politics. Now, does this mean you shouldn't have a plan? Absolutely not. You must. But sharing the details before your passing? That's optional, and dangerous if done too early or without care. A will should speak when you no longer can. And if you feel strongly about explaining your choices, do it in writing, quietly, clearly, and privately. Let the message be about love, not justification. What do you think? Is it better to tell your kids in advance about the inheritance, or let the will speak for itself? Leave your thoughts in the comments. You might help someone facing that very decision. And if you're still with me, thank you. We've still got 2 more secrets, and the next one? It's deeply personal and often overlooked. Number 4, private health struggles. Picture this. You're sitting in your recliner, feeling a little more tired than usual these days. Your hands tremble slightly when you hold your coffee cup. You've noticed some memory lapses, not serious, but enough to make you wonder. Do you tell your children? Many seniors believe in being honest about everything, especially with their health. But here's the hard truth. Sharing every health concern, especially the early signs of decline, can unintentionally trigger fear, control, and even loss of independence. Your children might mean well, but the moment they hear words like memory loss, dizziness, or chronic pain, some may jump into action. Suddenly, you're no longer in charge of your life. They're researching nursing homes, talking about power of attorney, or suggesting you stop driving, even if you're still fully capable. Science tells us something important. Perceived vulnerability in older adults can cause family members to overcorrect. A 2022 study in the Journal of Aging and Health found that nearly 40% of seniors felt a loss of autonomy after disclosing early-stage health conditions to family. Not because they were forced, but because decisions were made for them, not with them. That's why it's important to discern what to share, when to share it, and how. Some things are better first discussed with your doctor, a trusted friend, or a support group of people your age who truly understand the nuances. And when the time is right, you can bring your family in, with clarity, not fear. Have you ever held back from telling your family about a health issue out of concern for how they'd react? Tell us in the comments. Your honesty might give someone else the courage to handle their situation more wisely. Stick around. Our final secret is one that could protect your dignity in ways most people don't even consider. Number 5, your deepest regrets. Let's walk through 2 very different scenes. In the first, an elderly woman, let's call her Margaret, sits quietly on her porch with her daughter. The sun is setting. Margaret, overwhelmed by emotion, says, "I should have never stayed in that marriage. I wasted my best years." Her daughter, caught off guard, stares back in silence. That night, she lies awake, questioning everything she believed about her parents, her childhood, and her family's story. Now picture this. In the second scene, the same woman writes a letter to herself. She puts into words the choices she made, the ones she didn't, and why. She ends it with forgiveness, for herself, and for those who hurt her. She doesn't need anyone to fix it. She just needs to release it. Both versions are real, but only one leads to peace. You see, after 65, regret becomes a quiet companion for many. We think about the things we didn't do, the people we hurt, the chances we missed. And while speaking your truth is important, not every truth needs to be handed over to your children or grandchildren. Why? Because your regrets are yours. Sharing them with family can often create more confusion than connection. They may feel burdened, or worse, blamed. They may try to make it right when it's not theirs to fix. What was meant as a release for you becomes a weight for them. Instead, reflect with intention. Talk with a counselor, a spiritual guide, or someone who's lived a long life and understands the complexity of it all. Healing doesn't always require an audience. Have you ever shared a regret and wished you hadn't? Or maybe you kept something to yourself and found peace through silence. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your reflection might help someone else find clarity in their own story. Now, before we close, let's bring it all together with one final thought. Reaching 65 and beyond is not just a milestone. It's a sacred chapter, one filled with wisdom earned through trial. And perhaps the greatest wisdom of all is knowing when silence brings more peace than speaking ever could. We often grow up thinking that honesty means saying everything. But in truth, honesty doesn't mean oversharing. It means being true to yourself. And sometimes, that truth is best held gently, privately, not out of shame, but out of love for yourself and for those you care about. So let these 5 secrets be not a call to hide, but a guide to protect what you've spent a lifetime building, your dignity, your peace of mind, and your ability to walk through these years with grace. I'd love to hear from you. Which of these resonated most deeply with you? Have you kept a similar boundary, and did it help you find peace? Let's start a conversation in the comments. This community is built on experience, and yours could be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if you found comfort, insight, or even just a moment of reflection here today, subscribe. This channel is a place where truth is spoken with care and silence is honored with wisdom. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, not everything needs to be shared to be healed. Some things are meant to be kept close and cherished quietly.